Postman Pat has too many parcels. By John Cunliffe. Illustrated by Stuart Trotter. From the original television designs by Ivor Wood. Read by The New Storyteller. It was a busy day in Greendale. Peter Fogg was dashing off to do the milking on his motorbike, and Ted was on his way in his lorry to mend a hole in a roof. Pat was out early as well, but he was going slowly. He had such a load of parcels today. Some of them wanted to escape. Miss Hubbard found one that had got away, lying on the ground. "Oh, a parcel! Now I wonder who. Well, there's an address on it. I'd better give it to Pat." Pat met her round the next corner. "Morning. Parcel for you. Sorry I'm a bit late." "And I've one for you," said Miss Hubbard. "I found it lying in the street." "Dear me, Miss Hubbard, I must have dropped it. Thank you. My bag is so full today." "Goodness me, Pat. I hope you'll take more care. It's taken a bit of a knock. I don't think Mrs. Crockett would be too pleased to get a muddy parcel." "Now, don't you worry, Miss Hubbard. I'll give it a wipe before I deliver it. It's very nice of you to pick it up for me. I've never seen so many parcels in all my days. It's a real worry getting round the village with them. I can't use the van in these narrow lanes, you know." Pat went on his way. "One thing, my bag gets lighter as I go along. Soon be done now." At last, his bag was empty. "I'm glad that lot's finished." But when he went back to the post office, there was another pile waiting for him. "What's that?" "Not another load." "Oh, Pat, I'm so sorry," said Mrs. Goggins. "I don't know where they're all coming from." "It's worse than Christmas," said Pat. "What's going on? All the parcels in the world seem to be coming to Greendale." "Just take as many as you can," said Mrs. Goggins. "Then come back for another lot. That's the only way. Little by little you'll manage." "This bag's such a weight. It's giving me a sore back. And I need arms like a gorilla." There were so many parcels in Pat's van that there was hardly any room for Jess. "Now then, Jess, where are you going to sit? Shove up a bit and make room for another parcel. One of these days there won't be enough room for me to get in," said Pat. "Then you'll have to drive the van, Jess." Pat squeezed in somehow and went on his way. The first stop today was Thompson Grand. Sam's van was ahead of Pat, and there was Dorothy looking at a big glossy catalogue full of coloured pictures. There was a pile of parcels for her. "Now then, Dorothy," said Pat, "just look at this lot, all for you." "Oh, Pat, how nice," said Dorothy. "I was hoping they'd come today." "I can't say I was. I've had a huge lot of parcels today. It's like 10 Christmases all at once." "Where are they all coming from?" "It's this here catalogue, Pat," said Sam. "It's got everything in it. All the things I can't fit into my van. Folks love it. They're ordering stuff like mad. And they all come through the post." "Now I see," said Pat. "Skirts and blouses," said Dorothy. "TVs and videos," said Sam. "Pots and pans," said Dorothy. "Oh, help," said Pat. "Cheerio," said Sam. Pat went on his way. "Nay, Jess," he said, "it's going to get worse. I don't know what we're going to do. It'll be beds and wardrobes next." At Ted Glenn's, Ted was looking out for Pat. There was the biggest pile of parcels for Ted. Pat staggered up to the door with them, dropping them as he went. "Oops! Here up, Pat," said Ted as he caught the flying parcels. "What's this then? A new sort of airmail?" "Sorry about that, Ted, but I just can't cope. Everybody's gone mad, ordering every mortal thing from that catalogue of Sam's." "Well, you have to move with the times, Pat. Come up to date. It's no good staggering on with a bag of parcels, breaking your arm." "I can't get the van round these lanes and yards in the villages," said Pat. "No, Pat. You want a high-tech solution. I'll have a think about it. I'm sure I can come up with something." "I hope you can," said Pat, "before I get squashed under a pile of parcels. Cheerio." The next day, Major Forbes was on the lookout for parcel he'd sent for, when he spotted Pat behind a high pile of parcels. "By Jove," barked the Major. "There's my parcel, right at the bottom. Oh, help!" yelled Pat, as the Major tugged his parcel out, making all the other parcels tumble to the ground. "It's all right, Pat," said the Major. "I've got it. Bye-bye." Round the corner, Dr. Gilbertson was chatting to Dorothy Thompson. "And I was just saying I could do with a new car when Sam showed me that catalogue of his." "Oh yes, it's wonderful," said Dorothy. "There's everything in it." Pat walked straight into Dr. Gilbertson, and his parcels went flying again. "Whoa!" he shouted. "Oh, help!" said Dorothy. "What?" Dr. Gilbertson helped Pat up and said, "Now, Pat, you don't need to be so rough about delivering the mail. I'll be having some broken legs to mend." "I'm sorry, Doctor," said Pat. "It's this mail order madness that's come over the whole of Greendale." "Well, I think the Royal Mail should do something about it," said the doctor. "It's not good for your health, or for ours, if it comes to that." "What if I order a new car?" "I'll put a word in with your boss in Pencaster." "Well, I hope somebody does something," said Pat. "A new car. Now that would make a super parcel. I don't think that would go in my bag." The next day, it was time to call on Ted again. He was too busy to look out for Pat. "More parcels? Have a look at this, Pat," said Ted. "I think it'll solve your problem." The Mark I Super Speed Postal Scooter, just what the modern postman needs in the age of mail order. "It looks grand, Ted. I like the parcel box in front. Is there room for Cat?" "There's room for everything. Why don't you try it out? Have a test run?" "Well, I don't know how you've done it so quickly. I'll just try the seat." "What are you doing, Ted?" "You're not starting the engine, are you? How do you turn it off?" But Pat's question was too late. The postal scooter shot out of the workshop door, taking Pat with it. "Oh!" Pat shot down the hill, through an open gate, into a field, and crashed into a haystack. "Are you all right, Pat?" panted Ted when he found Pat. "I think it needs a bit of fettling before you use it for real. A few adjustments." Yes, Ted, quite a few," said Pat, picking himself out of the hay. "Like, well, putting brakes on it." A few days later, Mrs. Partridge was talking to Mrs. Goggins outside the post office. "That Pat, he makes a great racket these days when he goes round with the village post." "Aye, well, it is a bit noisy," said Mrs. Goggins. "But he certainly gets round with the parcels now. But he seems to think he's in some sort of race," said Mrs. Partridge. There was a loud bang, and Pat came whizzing along the village street on his postal scooter. Mrs. Goggins and Mrs. Partridge jumped into the post office doorway for safety. "I see what you mean," said Mrs. Goggins. P.C. Selby was having a quiet stroll when Pat shot into view. He jumped into Mr. Pringle's garden. Pat shot in at the open gate and at the other end. "My goodness," said Mr. Pringle. "Pat is in a hurry. Must be a terribly urgent telegram. But why did he come through here? The steep hills slowed Pat down a bit, but only when he was going up them. Pat tumbled off at the bottom of one hill, with parcels scattered all about. George Lancaster came along and helped to gather them up, saying, "Here you are, Pat. Are you trying to sew them?" Mrs. Selby was looking for Pat in the post office. "Morning, Mrs. Goggins. Can I have a quiet word?" he said. "I thought you might be popping in," said Mrs. Goggins. "I've had complaints. It's this high-speed postman of ours. Poor old Pat," said Mrs. Goggins. "He's only trying to do his job." "Right enough. But he's making a dickens of a racket, and endangering life and limb." "Let me have a word with Pat," said Mrs. Goggins. "I know he'll listen to me. No need for him to be in trouble." "I'll leave it to you then," said Mrs. Selby. "A word to the wise, eh? Thanks. See you, Mrs. Goggins." Pat came in a minute later. "Was that Mrs. Selby just now?" he said. "Yes, it was, Pat. And it was you he was talking about. He's taken your name and address. He knows it. We went to school together." "Never mind that. He's really cross with you. Been causing a lot of noise and danger, haven't you? Tearing round on that scooter thing." "But how else can I deliver all the parcels on time, if they keep on coming like this?" "Well, Pat, just as it happens, there's a parcel for you today. It's a big one. Have a look in it. You never know what it might be." "For me? Well, who can be sending one for me? I certainly haven't ordered anything from that blooming catalogue." Pat unwrapped the huge parcel. "Well, bless me. It's one of those trolleys. A proper postal trolley. I saw one when I went to London on that trip. Well, this should be a bit of all right. Let's get it loaded up." Off went Pat, proudly wheeling his postal trolley. He met the Reverend Timms. "What do you reckon to this, Reverend?" said Pat. "Wonderful. Ah, Pat, you see, the Lord will provide." "No, it came from the Royal Mail in Pencaster," said Pat. "It's to help me deal with all these parcels. And it's nice and quiet," said the Reverend Timms. "Just the thing for a peaceful corner of the world, by Pat." Dr. Gilbertson was out shopping. "Morning, Dr. Gilbertson." "Hello, Pat. I like your new trolley. Nice and quiet. Holds more parcels too." "It'll save me going off my trolley," said Pat. I can tell you. Pat went whistling cheerfully up the village street, Gertrude amongst the parcels and packets. He loved it. "Come on, Jess," said Pat. "You can give me a ride when we've done." But Jess wasn't at all sure about that. Who ever heard of a cat pulling a trolley? Postman Pat and the big surprise. It was a lovely morning in Greendale. The flowers were blooming in Pat's garden, and so were the weeds. Pat was up early. There might be time to do a spot of weeding before he went to work. "Now then," said Pat, "where did I put that spade? Here we are. Just the job. This'll soon get rid of those blooming weeds." Sarah was looking at the clock in the kitchen. "Just look at that time. Pat's going to be late with the post. Pat, you best leave your gardening now. Time's getting on. It's nearly 1:15. "Hang on," said Pat. "I'll be there in a minute. I'll just shift this." Pat was pulling at a big clump of grass. "Out you come. 1, 2, 3, heave ho. Ouch! Oh dear, oh dear, help! Oh dear. Ow! Oh! Oh, my poor back. Oh dear. Oh, Sarah. "Whatever's wrong, Pat?" shouted Sarah. "Oh dearie me. What's happened to you?" "It's my back," said Pat. "It doesn't half hurt. I was just pulling this grass." "Here, let me just straighten you up," said Sarah. "Ow! Oh, stop. It's worse like that." Sarah didn't know what to do. "Oh, I think I'd better call the doctor," she said. "I can't leave you standing there all day, propped up on the table." What luck! There was Dr. Gilbertson passing the window. Sarah waved to the doctor and ran out to speak to her. "What a piece of luck, Doctor, seeing you. Poor old Pat's hurt his back, and he can't move a step. Can you come in and have a look at him?" "Of course I can," said Dr. Gilbertson. "Poor Pat. We can't do with having our postman out of action." "Now then, Pat, what have you been up to?" "Oh, Doctor, only a bit of weeding." "Oh, ow!" "It hurts here." "Let's have a look now. Does it hurt when I press here?" "Ow!" "Sorry about that. Yes, you've pulled more than a bit of grass. You've pulled a muscle. That's what you've done. And you have to rest it. A day in bed, and you'll be as right as rain." "A day in bed?" Now you must do what the doctor says, said Cerber. That's right, it's the only way, but I'll give you something to ease the pain. Take 3 right away, then another 3 at bedtime. Bye for now. A day in bed, moaned Pat. What about the post? I can't just stay in bed with all the letters and parcels waiting to be delivered. I know what we can do. Sarah, you could take the letters. Well, I suppose I could. I did work for the post office once, and I still have my driver's license. Give old Shivering in Pencaster, said Pat. I'm sure he'll be able to fix it up. He'll be only too glad to get the post delivered on time. There's nobody could do it better than you. You know the way round as well as I do. Well, it would make a nice change, going out with the post. I'll give them a buzz right now. Sarah phoned Pencaster and fixed things up with Sid. There we are. It's all fixed up, said Sarah. Now, I wonder if Pat's hat will fit me. I'd not feel right without it. Well, it's not too bad. It'll do. Sarah went to see that Pat was comfortably tucked up in bed, with a pot of tea and a good book. Then it was time for her to be off. I'd better be on my way. Bye, Pat. Sid gave me the okay, so I'll be off. Have a nice rest. Hope your back soon feels better. Bye. Sarah was on her way. Just didn't know what was going on. He stayed at home to keep Pat company and cheer him up. What a surprise Mrs. Goggins had when the post office door pinged, and in walked Sarah. Morning, Mrs. Goggins. Morning, Pat, said Mrs. Goggins. Oh, hello. What's happened to... Oh, it's Sarah. Where's Pat? He's hurt his back, said Sarah, and has to stay in bed. I'm taking the post today. It's all arranged with Pencaster. Oh, well, that's all right then, said Mrs. Goggins. But poor old Pat, with a sore back, all laid up. But it'll be a nice change for you. Well, I hope you like it. Oh, I'm sure I will, said Sarah. I'll manage all right. Could you just ask Dorothy Thompson for a carrot cake recipe? Said Mrs. Goggins. She promised it last week, and Pat forgot. Don't worry, I'll get it for you. Cheerio. Sarah was singing as she went on her way. Early in the morning. She met P.C. Selby. Morning, Pat. Oh, what? Well, I'll be... Is it Sarah? Whatever are you doing with the post? Pat's laid up with a bad back. Poor fellow. I had that once. It does hurt, no? Now, Don't you worry about him. He'll soon be better. I'll pop in and see him later on. Cheer him up a bit, like. Thanks for the letters, bye. Saba's next stop was at the village church. Hello? Anybody there? Morning, Reverend. Bless me, said the Reverend Timms. What's happened to your voice, Pat? Oh, it isn't Pat. Is it you, Sarah? What a surprise. And a parcel. Lovely. But where is Pat? Laid up with a bad back for the day. Oh, the poor boy, said the Reverend Timms. I'll pop in and give him a game of chess. I'll take his mind off it, and I'll tell him how well you're getting on with the post. Thanks, Reverend. Cheerio. Sarah was on her way. At Thompson Grand, Dorothy Thompson was doing a special baking. That sounds like Pat, she said. Now I wonder if he's forgotten. It'll be a nice surprise. Morning, Pat. I just thought you... Oh, it's Sarah. Yes, Pat's in bed with a bad back, so I'm doing the post instead. There are lots of letters for you, Dorothy. Pat with a bad back? Today of all days? Well, what's so special about today? Oh, you just wait and see, that's all. Only, you better be on your way with all those letters to deliver. I'll not hold you up. Besides, I've been too busy to put the kettle on this morning. Oh, yes, well, I'll be off then. Goodbye. Well, what's she in such a rush for? Cerberus said to herself. I'm sure Pat said she always gave him a cup of tea. When Cerberus called on Alf Thompson, he was walking across the yard with a large parcel. All he said was, Hello, Pat. Cerberus, I'll just... Then he dodged into the barn, and she never saw him again. What is going on here? Said Cerberus. Folks are acting a bit peculiar. I wonder if they're always like this. I must ask Pat. Cerberus was on her way. There was something going on at Granny Dryden's cottage as well. Granny Dryden was trying on her best hat. Cerberus had a postcard for her. Oh, that must be Pat with the post, said Granny Dryden. Morning, Granny Dryden, said Cerberus. There's a card for you. Goodness gracious! What are you doing with the post, Sarah? Have you done a job swap, or whatever they call it? Well, we have in a way, only Pat isn't doing any job today, apart from lying in bed with a bad back. A bad back? I had one once before your time. I like your hat. I'm only trying it on to see if it fits, said Granny Jordan. Is it new? Well, no. Yeah, that is, no. It's a bit pocket today. It's just to keep me warm. Like, well, you know what I mean. I mustn't hold you back with all these letters to deliver. You'll be wanting to get back to see how Pat's getting on. Give him my love. Yes, I'll be off then. Bye, Granny Dryden. Everybody's rushing me on my way, Service said. No time for chat. Well, perhaps they'd rather have Pat for their postman after all. Cerber went all day up and down the winding roads, delivering letters and parcels to the people of Greendale. At last, it was time to head for home. She was looking forward to telling Pat all the doings of the day. What a strange day it had been, and how had Pat been getting on? There was Jess looking out for Sir on the doorstep. Hello, Jess. Have you been taking good care of Pat? Sir called up the stairs. Hello, Pat. I'm home. Are you still in bed? There was no answer. Where could he be? It's me, Sarah. There was still no reply. Perhaps he's watching TV. Then the door flew open, and a chorus of voices sang out, Happy Anniversary! Anniversary? I thought everyone had forgotten. Did Pat remember after all? With a little help from his friends, said Granny Jordan. We all wanted you to have a special party as a big surprise. And the doctor says Pat's back is almost better, so he can join in. And your hat? Yes. It almost gave the surprise away, didn't it? Said Granny Jordan. When you caught me trying it on. Have a slice of anniversary cake, said Dorothy Thompson. I can tell you, I had a shock when I saw you coming with the post. You almost discovered the surprise. Well, I did smell baking, but you didn't give me time to ask about it. But you haven't finished the day's post, Cerber, said Pat. I surely have. No, there's one more parcel, and it's for you, sir. Happy anniversary, and thanks for everything, and for being such a marvelous wife. But that isn't the last parcel. There's another in the bottom of my bag. This one is for you, Pat. Happy anniversary to you as well. And thanks for being such a marvelous husband. And all our good wishes to 2 Super Post people, said Dr. Gilbertson. Let's all drink to the happy couple. Here's to Sarah and Pat. 3 cheers for everyone, said Pat. Thanks for a lovely surprise party. Postman Pat and the Hole in the Road. It was a fine day in Greendale. Pat was on his way with his van full of letters and parcels for the village, and for the farms and cottages scattered all along the valley. Down at Greendale Village School, they had made a model volcano. Just think, children, said Mr. Pinkle, of all that hot rock going bubble, bubble, whoosh under the ground. You'd get your feet hot, said Katy. No, you wouldn't, said Bill Thompson, splashing away at his volcano painting. You could wear your wellies. It was a long time before wellies were invented, said Mr. Pinkle. The volcanoes made our lovely Greendale hills long before there were any people, never mind wellies. Great holes in the ground with rock oozing out like toffee. Did you say toffee? Said Tom. I like toffee. I said the rock was like toffee, said Mr. Pinkle, because it was all oozy, and it was so long ago that it was even before the dinosaurs came. You can all do a lovely painting tomorrow for open day, but it's home time now. What if, said Julian, as they were putting their shoes on, what if there was a volcano under the ground, here, under our school? Better put your wellies on and look where you're going, said Katy. Ooh, said Lucy. Pat was waiting at the gate for Julian. Time to go home, said Pat. The next morning, it seemed very quiet in the village when Pat was on his way to collect the letters. When he arrived at the post office, Mrs. Goggins was talking to someone on the telephone. Oh, yes, I certainly will. Don't you worry now. It'll be all right. I feel sure of that. Did you say it was near Thompson Ground? Deary me, what next? Yes, I'll tell him. I'll tell him to be really careful. Bye for now. What was all that about, Mrs. Goggins? What have I got to be so careful about? Said Pat. Oh dear, well, that was P.C. Selby, said Mrs. Goggins. He's in ever such a confaddle. It seems that there's a great gaping hole in the middle of the road near Thompson Ground, and he doesn't want anyone falling in it. He says it's big enough to swallow a cow. Oh, I know what that means, said Pat. Road closed. diversions, cones and bollards, and bits of plastic tape all over the place. How does he think I'm going to get through with all these letters and parcels? What a business it is, said Mrs. Goggins. It must be these volcanoes waking up again, said Pat. Julian was on about it last night. They've been doing it at school, volcanoes and earthquakes and such like, at how Greendale was made in the first place. Nay, Pat, it's only a hole in the road. Don't get carried away, said Mrs. Goggins. Well, I can't post all these letters in a hole in the road, can I? Never mind. The post always gets through somehow. Cheerio. Pat was still muttering to himself as he loaded up his van. What if a dinosaur came galloping out of that hole? You never know what might happen. I wonder if dinosaurs get letters. Now then, Jess, what did dinosaur cats look like? I bet they ate some huge fish. Alf was out on his tractor. Pat stopped for chat. What do you reckon to this hole in the road, Alf? What hole? Asked Alf. I've seen nothing. I've been ploughing this field since early on. There's a great hole just outside your house. Pieces Selby's shut the road off. There are notices all over. No road, keep out danger. Oh dear, said Alf. How am I going to get home? I'd best be off. There was a parcel for Greendale Farm. Hello? Is there anybody in? Hello, Pat, said Mrs. Pottage. Oh, a lovely parcel. Come and see our pictures, said Katie. They're for our volcano project. Volcanoes, said Pat. You don't think it's a volcano making that great hole in the road, do you? Oh, Pat, I don't think it can be as bad as all that, said Mrs. Pottage. I hope not, said Pat. Cheerio, and mind how you go. Pat kept a careful lookout, just in case there were any new holes that no one knew about. When he came to the crossroads, he had to stop. There was a huge sign with one word on it, diversion, blocking the road ahead. Oh dear, said Pat. We can't go that way. There was a blue arrow showing the new route, and Pat had to follow it. Now, Jess, where are we going to get to? I know Selby and his diversions. Last time I went this way. Hang on. I think we're lost. There was another diversion sign blocking the road with more blue arrows. Oh, not another. But these arrows are Pat drove down a winding road. There was only just enough room for his van to squeeze between the hedges. Then he came to another diversion. "What's this?" "The man must be mad," said Pat. "Oh no, we are lost now. I think we're in Timbuktu." "Now then, if we turn right here," said Pat. But it was no good. It only led to another diversion sign. Then Pat rubbed his eyes. "I've just spotted where we are, Jess. We're back where we started." Then Alf came chugging along on his tractor. "Don't follow me," said Pat. "I'm lost. If you follow these signs, you just go round in a great big circle." "Nay, Pat, I can't be bothered with all that," said Alf. "I have to get home and get my dinner. Let's shift this clutter out of the way." Alf dumped the diversion sign in the hedge. "There you are, no problem," said Alf, and he drove off down the road. Pat followed, not far behind. Near to Thompson Ground, there were red cones and plastic tapes, flashing lights and notices all over the road. In the middle of all this, there was a small hole. "Is that what all this fuss has been about?" said Alf. "It doesn't look much to me." "It must be a mini volcano," said Pat. "A baby one," said Alf. "I reckon Ted could fill that in. No bother. Look out, here comes trouble." P.C. Selby was coming towards them with a cup of tea in one hand. Now then, what's going on here?" he said in his special policeman's voice. "Come on, lads. You know this road's closed. You must have seen the signs. It's my duty to warn you, and I'll have to take your names and addresses." "Don't be daft, Arthur," said Pat. "You've known us ever since we were in short trousers." "Never mind that," said P.C. Selby. "We have to do it proper. Can you just hold my tea? And then, how do you spell proceeding?" "What's that, T? You haven't got a pencil sharpener on you, by any chance?" Let's have a sup before it goes cold." Now Dorothy came out with a pot of tea and cups and saucers on a tray. "Here we are. A nice fresh cup of tea and a top-up for Arthur. That'll buck everybody up." "Oh, thanks, Dorothy," said Pat. "Just what we need. 2 sugars, Arthur." "And 3 for me," said Arthur. Dorothy, have you got anything to sharpen Arthur's pencil? I'll hold your tea." "Hang on, Pat. If you could just hold this and then, Arthur, pass your pencil to Dorothy. Then if you can hold this." They didn't seem to have enough hands to hold all the cups of tea and the pencil and the notebook and a pencil sharpener. They juggled all these things between them. Oops, said Alf. Look, Aunt, you're slopping my tea. I think there were 2 E's in proceeding, said Pat. But is it a C or an S? What's that, T? Has anyone seen my notebook? Said P.C. Selby. I think it's going round in circles like my van, said Pat. It's sure to come back to where it started. Talking about that, said P.C. Selby, you've given me an idea. Now then, if we made all the traffic go through Alf's yard instead. Pat gave Dorothy her letters and left them to discuss the new plan. He still had a lot of letters to deliver. When he called on Miss Hubbard, she was acting very oddly, prodding about the garden with her stick. "Oh, morning, Pat," she said. "Morning, Miss Hubbard. You've not lost that ring again, have you?" "Certainly not. I'm just taking precautions. Holes, you know, appearing without warning. You never know what's going on these days. P.C. Selby told me all about it. Volcanoes, earthquakes. It's these newfangled things doing it. All these objects whizzing about in the sky. Flying saucers, who can tell?" "Oh, I wouldn't let it bother you, Miss Hubbard," said Pat. "Just get your taters in the way you always did, and nothing much will go wrong. Cheerio." Pat called on Ted Glenn. There was a parcel for him. "Sorry I'm a bit late today," said Pat. "It's this hole in the road. I've had to go all around Greendale to get here." "Don't worry," said Ted. "Leave it to me. I'll have that hole filled in no time. A bag of sand and cement and plenty of gravel and tar. That'll sort it out. All that lot was left over from fettling that old house in Pencaster. I knew it would come in handy one day." "Champion," said Pat. Pat was on his way. George Lancaster was busy sorting his eggs. "Morning, George. My goodness. You have a lot of letters today." "It's my birthday," said George, smiling. "Happy birthday, George," said Pat. "You'll find a special one from me and Sarah somewhere among that lot. Cheerio." Pat had delivered all his letters. It was time to go back to the post office to see if any more letters had come from Pencaster. He stopped at Thompson Ground to see how things were going. There was a whole new set of signs leading into the field and through Alf's yard where Ted's lorry was parked. "It's like a town centre here," said Alf. "My poor hens. They're all mizzled, poor things. Don't know which way from the other." they'll not leave for a fortnight. Here comes another van. Oh, it's Sam. Sam Morton drove in his mobile shop, tooting his horn. See what I mean, Pat? It's terrible. You'll be all right, said Pat, as soon as Ted gets that hole filled in. P.C. Selby stood in the middle of the road, directing the traffic. Come on, slowly as you go. Careful now. What's these hands? Tea up, called Dorothy from the kitchen door. And fresh biscuits, straight from the oven. Just what I need, said Ted. We'll have a sup while that tar sets. Are you coming for your tea, Arthur? Something seemed to be keeping P.C. Selby. Help! Did somebody shout help? Said Pat. He's not still looking for his notebook, is he? Said Alf. We'd better go and see what's up, said Ted. There was P.C. Selby in the middle of the road, stuck fast. Ted looked closely at his big police boots. What are you doing in my nice new tar? Said Ted. Fast-setting stuff, that. A new kind, you know. I've brought you a nice cup of tea, said Alf, till we can get you unstuck. You have to take your boots off and leave them in charge, said Pat. It's a good thing there isn't a volcano under there. So P.C. Selby loosened his boots, and Alf brought a wheelbarrow to wheel him to the house. Time for a bit of farm transport, said Alf. We'll need a new warning sign, said Pat. He found a big piece of card in his van and wrote on it with his felt pen, Danger, police boots. There, everybody should see that, said Pat. And that's quite enough of volcanoes for one day. I hope Dorothy's kept that tea hot. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, who's back on my cat? Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, who's back on my cat? All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All the streets will smile as he waits to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure there'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Early version. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, who's back in my cat? Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, who's back in my cat? All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. That's who sees a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All of them will smile as he waits to greet them. Maybe twilight won't be sure, there'll be knock, ring, Letters for a door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat comes back on a cart. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat Susie's a really happy man. Pat Susie's a really happy man. Pat Susie's a really happy man.